When I come around, got the whole thing wobbin'.
Hey, what's going on, guys? MVP here. We're going to talk about the NFL today. I got my friend Darius here as always.
Hey, what's going on, people?
Yep. So what up, MVP Nation? This is what we're going to do today. We got headlines here, a lot of topics to talk about, especially about the anthem protest. We got our top 10 linebackers coming into the 2018 season. We also have a top 100 reaction to the top 100 players, a list that NFL puts out year in and year out. And certain players that we don't like on the list, or certain players that we want to discuss on their rankings on the show. And we're going to go over the NFC East today and our predictions for the NFC East. One of the most headlined divisions in all of football. Right to the headlines, the NFL makes the new anthem rule, man. Pretty much saying that you got to stand for during the national anthem or be in the locker room. If you do protest, you're going to get fined. A lot of owners already came out and said that they're willing to pay the fines for the players because that's really kind of... It's not like the owners are signing with the players. It's kind of them pandering to both sides. We're saying like, hey, we'll pay for it. But at the same time, they don't want to lose their players and be like, hey, like, you know, we did kind of vote for this. Even though there wasn't a vote, it was kind of like a show of hands. Like Roger Goodell literally probably walked into the room. Hey, who wants to... do this new rule. People raised their hands, was a majority voting. All right, that's it. That's what we're doing. And then they didn't bother to ask the players because ultimately they knew what was going to happen. The players would have been like, no way we're doing this.
It definitely they pissed off a lot of people with this ruling. I know a lot of people were furious about it. Talk shows all talking about this rule, and it's definitely going to cause a lot of drama this upcoming season, no doubt.
No doubt about it. Donald Trump has obviously addressed this, saying if you don't stand for the flag, you shouldn't be in this country to begin with.
That man, he's a character there. That's a character.
And there's also been some players that involving this. Some players are willing to sit out if Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid has until they're signed to a team. Now, my whole stance on this is personally, there's a reason why I watch NFL Red Zone. Because I don't see any of that. Because ultimately, I've come to watch football. That's all I've come to do.
Yep.
And I could honestly care less what these players' political stands are. I can appreciate that they are passionate about certain things. Even though I may not agree with it, I can ultimately respect that. I can respect that they're doing whatever it takes, whether it's getting fined or to voice their opinion on stuff. Because that's what me and you are doing right now. And that we're voicing our opinion. And that's now they may do it at their workplace, and granted, sometimes people don't understand that, and they also think that it's a privilege. Like they don't understand that it's a privilege that they're playing in the NFL. Like that's not a guarantee. That wasn't automatic. Like you deserved it. Like they worked hard throughout their whole football career to get to the spot that they're at, but they feel like it's automatic for them, like, oh, we automatically should be playing in the NFL. Where else we're going to play? It's like, no, it's a privilege that you're playing at a high level and that an elite athlete as themselves are even on a team. And then not only that, getting paid millions and millions of dollars to perform this to entertain all of us. Now,
yeah, and a lot of these guys forget that the NFL is a business. And if you hurt the team's bottom line, like if you're over there kneeling on the sideline and people don't want to see that, people stop showing up to the games, you're hurting the bottom line, people are going to stop showing up, and that's going to get the attention of the owner, and then they're going to be like, okay, this guy's causing a problem. I want him off of my team. It's a business.
Yeah, because it's their money. That's the owner's money is coming directly from their pockets to these players. And now, granted, there's the unfair balance where the owners make way more money compared to what the players make. But at the same time, my whole thing is that regular, everyday folks, more likely people who are also listening to this podcast, me and you, we cannot protest out our job. We get fired. That's
exactly.
Our job, and I believe that as a business owner, as jobs, as a company, that's smart. We don't want you. We want you working when you're on the job. We're not paying you to kneel down somewhere or to protest against whatever you feel like. What if your workplace plays a national anthem before you start working? they don't have time to pay you, and they'll fire you right then and there. And they'll be even harder for you to get a job because guess what? You're too worried about protesting than doing your job. And people tend to forget these NFL football players, the stadium is their workplace. That's their workplace. So it's a special thing where it's kind of like, it's hard to define that as a workplace. But remember, once the game's over with, the checks are handed out right then and there. Oh, boop, you played the game. Here's your check. Go home. And It is what it is. And players act like, granted, yeah, the league will drop off in talent once if these high-class players leave, but they act like they won't be replaced. There's thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people that never got a chance in football that would more than happy sign up and stand for the flag to get paid. They won't.
Definitely,
They don't care what the owner's policies. And to be honest, if I was working, I don't care about what my boss thinks or cares. As long as you're paying me, I really don't care. As long as it ain't got nothing to do with me personally. As long as you're not personally coming at me. Now the thing is, these players do feel like the owners are coming at them personally, and that and some owners may not understand the football player struggle because you're on opposite ends of the spectrum. You, as an owner, you probably were born rich. You lived a different lifestyle. You're much older than these guys. And then you got these football players where some of them come from the ghetto, come from nothing. And all of a sudden you hand them millions of dollars and society expects them to act a certain way when they were never raised at all like that. And now they're put on the spotlight where their whole life the spotlight may be behind a police car was the only time they had a spotlight on them, or anything like that nature. So it's like it's hard for anybody to even meet in the middle because it's like you're so far away, and then both sides are too stubborn to even want to negotiate anything. So it's all around controversy, and I want to actually really get your take on this whole protest and all the anthem rule, because for our listeners who don't know, you're black, and then on top of that, you served in the Navy. And so as a person who served our armed forces and defended this country, how do you feel about the players taking it or even the rule itself?
Yeah, my take on it personally is that I understand where these players are coming from. They want to stand up for what they think will stand up by taking a knee, which is in turn going to help them raise awareness for police brutality. And I get all of that. That's a very noble thing. It's a very noble cause. But all I'm saying is that I know they're not intending to disrespect service people, but it's extremely disrespectful to people who put their lives on the line, people whose family members have died, like what that flag is supposed to represent. And it's extremely disrespectful to a lot of people. So, you can sit there and, take a knee all you want and do all of that stuff, but just know that you're going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, especially military families. And that's the consequences that you're going to have to put up with. You're going to lose a lot of fans. You're going to lose a lot of money. So that's all I can say about it. It's a very sticky situation. Maybe instead of taking a knee, maybe actually, going out and doing something, maybe fundraisers, something else that can help,
raise awareness or help to the cause, as in help those who wrongfully accused. There are many wrongfully accused people in prisons that are stuck in the system because there's just a system in place and people can't beat the system. Yeah. There's a lot of poor people who can't afford the lawyers to help bail them out or to help have a voice for them, and that's a real troubling time that our prisons are filled with a lot of people and sometimes are wrongfully accused, but at the same time, those wrongfully accused people don't have the financial needs to afford not only just a regular lawyer, but a good one to help defend them and help their cause to come out and be a productive member in society. And the main problem is, to not get too political, sometimes we put all the people in the same boat, in the same group, that a certain race or a certain demographic all are the same people because, this certain people all rob, so that means all of them must be robbers. Or all these people are goody two-shoes, so they must be all goody two-shoes. And that's wrong because each and every one of us is very different. And even just because you're the same race as somebody, just because you believe in the same religion as somebody, doesn't mean you're the exact same. And you shouldn't be grouped into that group mentality. You shouldn't be able to be recognized, or put a label on as that's who you are, because that's not true. But those bad people also don't do any good for those other people. You're not helping the cause. Same with, I get that you want to raise awareness, but ultimately, what does awareness do? It's not like you don't know police brutality is bad. We're very aware that police brutality is bad, but how are you going to fix that? Oh, I don't know, I'm just here to raise awareness. That don't help nobody, that's nice and all that those people in the mall that talk about DARE, teens against drugs and whatnot. Oh, we're here to raise awareness. Who doesn't know drugs are bad? Like, maybe teens don't, and maybe when you were in 5th grade, when they would come around with a lion and tell you that, oh, drugs are bad, it's like, because we didn't know then. But as an adult, it's like, you know what you're getting yourself into at that point. And raising awareness doesn't do nothing for me. That doesn't help getting drugs off the streets. All I'm doing is paying for people to talk about saying that they're bad. I already know that. And it's the same with protesting. I know it's bad, but I want you to do something about it. I want you to help fix the problem. I don't want to be a part of a group that all we're doing is talking about it. Talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words. You can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? And that's all I really have to say about that and that touchy subject. And that's pretty as much political as we're ever going to get on this podcast. And that's something we cannot avoid in the football society. We cannot avoid about the anthem protest, because it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
More than ever. Now back to football news. Gronk is now close to a new deal with the Patriots. Said he was going to retire, which I kind of believe that he was just saying that in order for his agent to add a little bit more incentive there, and deservingly so. He's the best tight end in all of NFL. You can argue top 10 player in all of NFL when healthy.
Future Hall of Famer for sure.
Oh yeah, he's already the all-time, I think, scoringest tight end in NFL history. I mean, he's put up ridiculous stats that some wide receivers can't even touch sometimes at a tight end.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And one of the best
get that extra money.
And one of the best personalities too in all of NFL.
Oh yeah, Gronk's a fun-loving guy.
Yeah. 49ers Reuben Foster, domestic violence charges were dropped, and girlfriend came out and said that she lied about that.
Wow, that's pretty pathetic.
I mean, that's another touchy subject that, that there are people that are, once you make a little money, that they're trying to get every little penny out of you, and you owe them something out of nowhere. And good thing for the 49ers for that this happened, because one, he's a very talented player. He made a big impact as a rookie, and he slid down boards to the draft because of these off-the-field issues. And, it's one of those concerns that a lot of teams have when drafting a player. You don't know who they are once they make that kind of money. Once they have that spotlight on them, can they handle all these pressures? Are they, in a sense, trained well to talk to a media a certain way without releasing too much information? When you have 10 mics in front of your face after every game, and they're telling you what you did wrong, and are you able to accept that kind of pressure? And good for the 49ers. This is a great thing for them. And Reuben Foster may be a player we'll talk about in our top 10 linebacker list coming up.
There should be consequences for women who falsely accuse men of rape, domestic violence, and stuff like that. I'm just throwing my 2 cents out. I just feel like that's a despicable thing to do.
It really is, to be quite honest. And my thing about that is the fact that I think there is this sort of standard that because ultimately what makes it a harsh deal is the fact that there are women who come out there and don't ever talk about it, and they're the ones who are getting abused and stuff like that. And then there's women who come out here and claim all this, like I believe Ezekiel Elliott, his girlfriend was found of lying, and on top of that, she was texting her girlfriends saying, hey, I'm going to need you to tell, if you go on the stand, I want you to lie for me, and text messages. And people don't understand, there's some people that don't understand what you can do to a man that way.
You could destroy their life.
Because not only that, he's going to be in prison. Like, a regular man will be in prison for life on that. And that's just on false accusations and stuff like that. And it is, and if they're found, you were found not guilty and you found the girlfriend for lying and stuff like that, it's kind of weird how they don't get punished at all, because it's like the boy who cried wolf. And then all you're doing is doing a disservice to those who were abused, because it's like, oh, how do we know women ain't lying? How do we know all women ain't liars? And that's true, not all women are liars. How do we know that you really were abused? Because now you're lying. So now it's like all you're doing is making the court systems harder for both men and women during that situation. And I think it is one of the tough times, especially nowadays with the Me Too movement, and then all these famous people now with all these rape allegations and rape charges. There are, it is both ways. There are guys that, scummy guys out there. I'm not saying that all guys ain't women beaters, but there are some evil people out there in this world that do those things.
Yep.
And the Seahawks recently signed Brandon Marshall to a 1-year, $2 million deal. That's about the range where Des Bryant is probably going to get paid. If Brandon Marshall, an aging wide receiver who once was a very talented guy, is getting paid $2 million, Des Bryant's probably easily touching $5 million. At that point, I think.
Yeah, we'll see if he accepts this. I feel like, I don't know why, I have a feeling that he's looking for more than that. But we'll see.
Because he felt like he was getting low paid as is with the Cowboys. He was making $12 million. And he wanted
overpaid.
And then he was asking to get paid more, and Jerry Jones was, I was kind of telling you about you need to take a pay cut. And other than that, Michael Kendricks, leading linebacker for the Eagles, had recently got cut.
That's crazy. Where he's going to end up,
There was a lot of reports San Francisco and Oakland were one of the teams headlining for his services there at linebacker. My thing is about that is, I want to know why he got cut. There's not been a lot of reports. He's not been injured. He's been great since coming into the NFL. Now, granted, his younger brother kind of stole his shine there in Minnesota, but he's still a talented linebacker, and I want to know what was the reason. Was it production? Was it maybe we don't want to pay him big money? But we'll see what reports have later on.
That's a good question.
That wraps it up for headlines, guys. If you have any comments or anything, please leave them down below, and we'll be glad to read them and address them and reply to them, as well as like and subscribe the video, of course, for more content, to be notified when new content gets pulled up. Now we move on to our next topic, the top 10 linebackers entering 2018. These are linebackers that don't necessarily rush the passer. They're both middle and outside linebackers. Outside linebackers in a 4-3, middle linebackers in both schemes. And this list, there's a lot of talented guys as always. Sometimes it's harder than not. But for me, I'll run down my bottom 5 guys. Starting at 10, I have Reuben Foster, a guy we just recently talked about, entering his young rookie season, was a big impact for the 49ers there. And I believe he's going to end up maybe touching the top 5 list more sooner than not. A great Alabama linebacker under the Nick Saban era. He's been able to produce linebackers at a high level. Reuben Foster, C.J. Mosley, Dante Hightower, and people forget Rolando McClain, but when he signed with the Raiders was one of these highly touted linebackers, and obviously he just couldn't get himself together off the field, but he was once a very talented linebacker there. Number 9, I have Anthony Barr from Minnesota, just a very freakishly athletic guy who can cover tight ends very well, guy who's very big at 6'5", can run with the best of them. Can do all aspects of what a linebacker can do there in Minnesota. Levante David, he's number 8 for me. These are the new age linebackers, these guys on this list, because back in the day, these guys would probably be playing safety. They would be too fast to be playing linebacker back in the day, but strong enough to be playing safety. At strong safety. But these guys nowadays are guys who can cover the middle of the field, who can cover really well, sideline to sideline speed, great tacklers. May not physically be built like an old school linebacker where they're like 6'3" and can overpower offensive linemen, but just great sideline to sideline speed. One of the great leaders for that Tampa Bay defense. His teammate, to me, I believe it's a little bit better based statistically, and probably going to be one of the up-and-coming linebackers, Quan Alexander, as well too. He's a little bit more not versatile, but a little bit more athletic, better pass defender, has a lot of interceptions from the middle linebacker spot. And number 6, Eric Kendricks. We already touched on his brother. Eric Kendricks has been a stud since being drafted by Minnesota, has outperformed his brother easily and outperformed his running teammate in Anthony Barr. Also, like I said, with a new age linebacker, he's able to cover the middle of the field. He may be undersized, as people say, at 6 foot, but he's the perfect height to cover relatively tight ends, the middle of the field, and a great wrap-up tackler. That's my bottom 6. What about you? What is your bottom 6?
All right, so for number 10, we're going to start off, for me, with Eric Kendricks. You know, he's a really good, solid linebacker, you know, played for the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, they were the number 1 defense this year, so I'm pretty sure he had a lot to do with that. Solid tackler, good in pass defense. You know, they might have got blown out in that playoff game 38-7 by the Eagles, but he was a solid player all year long, so he cracks my top 10 list, number 10. Number 9, we got the rookie Reuben Foster, who we already spoke about earlier. Great linebacker, you know, just kind of plays on a terrible team, but now that they got Jimmy Garoppolo in the mix, you know, maybe he'll get some more recognition for being a stud on that defense. A little standout player. Number 8, this might be a shock to you, but I got Sean Lee for the Dallas Cowboys. I know he gets hurt every other game, it feels like, but when he's in there, the Cowboys defense is a lot
more potent, a lot more, great leadership on the defense, no doubt about it.
Yeah, a lot more efficient. They're just a better overall group whenever Sean Lee's in there. So I gave him respect and put him in there when he's healthy. Number 7, another guy we got from the Cincinnati Bengals, Vontaze Burfict. Only because of this guy's just pure, like, just ferociousness that he brings to the field. Yeah, he's just a scary dude, you know. Like, a lot of people don't want to run into this guy. This guy's, you know, he's been listed as a dirty player, which, I mean, rightfully so. He is pretty dirty. But, like, I mean, the only reason I'm putting him in this top 10 is just because of, like, he puts fear in people like that and people coming across the field. So I had to put him in there.
My thing is, touch on real quick about he's one of those players where you love to have him on your team, but hate to go against him.
Yeah.
Because he's because granted, he is a dirty player, but at the same time, he's willing to do whatever it takes to win a game.
Mm-hmm.
And you may need to have one of those players for every goody two shoes you have on your team. You need to have a Vontaze Burfict. You know,
have a bad guy, bad boy.
You know, for every bad boy, you have to have a good guy. You know, and you can't just have a team filled with bad dudes, and you can't have a team filled with just goody two shoes. You need to equal it out. And Vontaze Burfict, I mean,
he's a punisher.
Yeah, he's a guy that he does put fear of running in the middle of the field. And granted, his bark is louder than his bite. And he did get kind of punked by Juju Smith.
He did.
Recently.
He got blindsided. That was a nice hit.
Yeah, but go ahead. What's your number 6 one?
And my number 6 is Anthony Barr, another linebacker from Minnesota Vikings. You know, like I said earlier, he was instrumental in the Vikings being the number 1 defense this year. And I see him continuing his success next year on that defensive side.
Right. So our top 5, my number 5 guy is C.J. Mosley. Since the absence of Ray Lewis, granted Ray Lewis is a Hall of Famer, but production still hasn't dropped much. C.J. Mosley is also part of that new age linebacker group, a great coverage linebacker, a great middle linebacker in general, can do all aspects of what you ask for your middle linebacker to do. What a great player and a great stud they have there in Baltimore. Number 4, Telvin Smith for Jacksonville. A guy that's going to be stepping up more for Jacksonville now that Paul Plasnowski is now out for them, and he's going to be definitely the leader there. He was one of the defensive leaders on that Florida State team that won a national championship over there, and so being a leader is something that he doesn't go away from. Also, great sideline-to-sideline speed for him as well, too. He makes a lot of turnovers. It was also instrumental for that defense too, for being a very heavily turnover team out there as well. Bobby Wagner is my number three linebacker. Now, I do believe that between 3 and 4, this is where you get into the relatively great linebackers in here. And Bobby Wagner has always been a performer out there in that Seahawks defense. He's a great, sideline to sideline speed is something that I'm always going to say about these linebackers because that's what they possess. They're able to run with the best of them. They're able to cover tight ends, and also not only that, be great run defenders and be great impact on both the passing game and in the running game. And the passing game is becoming more and more prevalent. And if you have a linebacker that can play all 3 downs, that's something Bobby Wagner has been able to do since day one. Number 2 is a guy a lot of people probably going to think controversial, but for me, Deion Jones is the second best linebacker. And it's based on the fact that not only is he able to cover well, just as good as cornerbacks can against tight ends, and also great in coverage. Very instinctual guy, great tackler. He's a bit of a stat stuffer as well, but I think he's a lot more instrumental, and I expect him to have a bigger season entering into the 2018 season. And also like him based on his age. He's much younger than Bobby Wagner. Eventually, I think Bobby Wagner's age is going to catch up to him in Seattle. And now that defense is kind of diminishing there in Seattle, where they're losing Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas has came out and said he wants to be traded. Cam Chancellor's getting his neck looked at recently to see if his future is playing there. And and so Bobby Wagner may have to be asking to do a lot more on his plate. So that's why I have Deion Jones as high as number 2. And number 1, no doubt about it, Luke Kuechly. Luke Kuechly is the linebacker who defies the new age idea of having a smaller safety-ish linebacker or a thinner frame, because he's 245 pounds, runs with the best of them, and super big, super athletic for his size, great tackler, and undeniable leader. Luke Kuechly has been a stud since Boston College. His days there, the moment he got drafted, he instantly improved that Carolina Panthers defense. They may be losing Thomas Davis due through suspension of PEDs, but that would not affect the team as much because Luke Kuechly is a bona fide stud. And I think he's undoubtedly the best linebacker there is.
Definitely.
And give me your top 5.
So my top 5. Number 5, I got Deion Jones coming in. Atlanta Falcon. He's a really good linebacker. He's really young. He's got a bright future ahead of him. I remember watching this past season him literally seal the game against the New Orleans Saints with a game-winning interception. Like, this guy's a stud, no doubt about it. And I plan on seeing him in the top 3 linebackers in the near future. Definitely got a bright future ahead of him. Very fast, very strong, quick, very instinctive.
Instinctive linebacker. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's like I said, because now that the passing game has become more prevalent than ever, you need a guy who can stay on the field all 3 downs, and that's what he can provide. Who's your number 4 guy?
Number 4, I got C.J. Mosley coming in, piggybacking off what you said. This guy showed up right after Ray Lewis, arguably the greatest linebacker to ever live, came in, and he hasn't missed a beat. C.J. Mosley has been instrumental in the Ravens keeping that defensive intensity that they're so well known for over the years. So C.J. Mosley, I got him number 4, showing him respect. Number 3, I had to put Ryan Shazier on there. I know he had the horrific injury that just happened last season, and his future is looking very doubtful. But from the time when he did play, this guy was really, really good. Like, I think people don't realize how good this guy was of an interior linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I just had to show respect and put him on this list, and hopefully he has a future.
Here's a funny thing that most people don't know about him. He was actually listed as the 3rd string tight end at Ohio State because that's how athletically gifted he was as a linebacker out there. He's super quick. That's no doubt about that. And he just looks like a Pittsburgh Steeler. And that's so funny about Pittsburgh Steelers. They tend to draft guys that fit what a Pittsburgh Steeler is about.
Definitely. So I got him number 3. Number 2, I got Bobby Wagner. You know, even though he's getting on up there in age or whatever, but you know, still a solid linebacker, obviously, for that
Legion of Boom.
Dismantled Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
You know, the Seahawks aren't what they used to be, but he's still the centerpiece to that defense. So he's always going to be a top player until his body starts to give out on him. And number 1, I mean, Luke Kuechly. Enough said. You don't even really have to go into detail on Luke Kuechly. He's the best there is.
And the thing is about it is, with linebackers, it's these guys we name may not be top 10 even in tackles. Tackles is a statistic that really does not matter. Linebackers is something where like you actually have to watch them play.
Yep.
Because like believe it or not, guys, I don't think anybody on our list actually is top 5 in tackles in the NFL. But there are guys on this list that are in, like, I know Quan Alexander, Deion Jones, and Telvin Smith are high on the list in turnovers. And that's a statistic that you do have to worry about with linebackers. Because linebackers is sort of like when judging, including into the Hall of Fame, it's like you don't look at statistics. You just kind of have to watch them. You have to see, because they're the quarterback of the defense. And so that's where Luke Kuechly may not have a statistical, like, oh, he has 2,000. I mean, he has a 200 tackles in a season, or because one, they're least likely to get any sacks unless came in on a blitz, and that's by design. Not really going to get for interceptions, though. Linebacker interceptions have gone up due to the new age of passing and covering tight ends and running backs. But yeah. This top 10 linebacker list is our top 10, rounding out my top 10. Luke Kuechly, number 1, Deion Jones, 2, Bobby Wagner, 3, Telvin Smith, 4, C.J. Mosley, 5, Anthony Barr, 6, Quan Alexander, 7, Levante David, 8, I had Eric Kendrick, 6, my bad, Anthony Barr at 9, and Reuben Foster at 10. Your list goes with...
Number 1, we had Luke Kuechly. 2, Bobby Wagner. 3, Ryan Shazier. 4, C.J. Mosley. 5, Deion Jones. I had Anthony Barr at 6, Vontaze Burfict at 7, 8, Sean Lee, 9, Reuben Foster, and 10, Eric Kendricks.
Right, and that rounds up our top 10 list. Comment if you agree and share with us your top 10 linebacker list. We'll be happy to see your top 10 linebacker list. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more top 10 lists each and every week. When me and Darius get together, we do a top 10 list of a different positional player, different positions on the field. And after we do our top 10 list, we'll construct our own top 100 player overall list. Now we go into our next subject. Our next subject is, speaking of top 100, is our reaction to the top 100. As you know, the NFL Network has produced this nice, wonderful, controversial list of top 100, which are ranked by the players before the Pro Bowl. That's where the ranking comes in at. The voting ends at that. Recently, my headlines are here. Case Keenum is at 51. I don't understand where Case Keenum, who's been cut by multiple teams, who couldn't make... The only reason why he became the starter is because both quarterbacks in front of him got hurt. And he wasn't statistically mind-blowing, because 51, you're telling me he's the number 1 bottom half guy in the league. He was higher than Derek Carr at 60. He was higher than Phillip Rivers at 56. Kirk Cousins, who's come to replace him, has put up more statistical career numbers than he has at 94. I have no earthly idea why Case Keenum is at 51. He must have really been on the good side of all his teammates there in Minnesota to put him that high. Because I can't, to be honest, I'm like stunned at the fact that 51. 51. That means almost, like you're almost in the top half of top 100 players in the league. And I think you can put him, like if him and Kirk Cousins switched, I can respect that. Because, okay, yeah, he's in the 90s. He had a good season. He finally played, he finally played a good football. It's a great story and whatnot. But guess what? When it mattered the most, in all those games, one, he got extremely lucky against the Saints game because he wasn't doing nothing in that game at all until somebody decided they don't know how to tackle. He was one of the main reasons why they lost to the Eagles.
Got destroyed.
Right. And to me, how do you feel about Case Keenum there at 51?
I think Case Keenum is he was carried a lot this past year. He had a great defense behind him most of the year until they faced the Eagles in the playoffs. And he had weapons all around him on the offensive side. He had Dalvin Cook.
Before he got injured, Kyle Rudolph, who's a great tight end. The two receivers combined led the league in as a duo in yards and in touchdowns.
So we're gonna see his true value this upcoming season.
He's gonna be unranked. I can promise you this, that he will be unranked next year. He will in the top 100, and if he is ranked, it's gonna be maybe in the 90s. Deshaun Watson at 50.
Oh man, he would have been so much higher.
I think
if he didn't get hurt.
He was on pace to shatter rookie quarterback records, both yards, probably in rushing yards as well. Total touchdowns was going to go through the roof. At 50, I think that's a very courteous thing. I do think because of the injury, I think putting him any higher is going to be more controversial than it already is. A lot of people think, how was he here and he didn't even play the full season? Well, when he played half a season, he was already at 19 touchdowns, which was tied for the rookie record of most passing touchdowns at the time.
That was crazy.
With Kurt Warner, I believe. Or not Kurt Warner, or with either, I believe, Russell Wilson or Andrew Luck. 19 touchdowns, believe it or not, is a lot for halfway through a season.
A lot. Because
if you would have put it, that would have been 38 total. I mean, 38 just passing at the end of the season. If he was, that was his projection
for a rookie.
And that's the only reason why the Texans offense looked any sort of competent at all.
Yeah, they had no shot as soon as he got hurt.
Yeah. At that point, it was, and you saw it. They gave the Browns the number 4 overall pick. But anyways, after that, Harrison Smith at 46. This dude has been undeserving and unrecognized throughout his whole career. He finally has recently got a Pro Bowl nod, an All-Pro nod. But this dude is easily, to me, the best safety in all of the NFL. Now, there's guys who get bigger names than him, Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, who was at 42. And that's because it's like, well, Earl Thomas, if we're talking about the Legion of Boom, he has to be the big leader as a safety. So it's kind of like he gets known on name recognition more than his actual like production, where Harrison Smith since day one has been a stud for the Vikings. Jarvis Landry at 52. I think Jarvis Landry is a great player, but his average to his receptions to yards input is really bad. He averages only only 4.6 yards a catch, which is
I could do that.
Which is very low. A guy like Ted Ginn has barely over 55 catches, I believe, this past season, and 1,000 yards. Jarvis Landry barely touched 1,000 yards and had almost over 96 catches. So it's kind of like he went from being underrated and underpaid because he's like, he doesn't have any good quarterbacks out there. Maybe Ryan Tannehill and then Jay Cutler and whatnot. That revolving door they had going on there, and he's just making the best. But now that he's paid like a top 5 receiver and he's on the Browns, I think production, he's still going to catch a lot of, balls and have a lot of reception. I just think the touchdowns and the yards are just not going to be there. I do think he's a top 100 player, just not within the 50s. I think maybe 70s. You can argue, he had a good year reception-wise. I don't think he should be higher than OBJ. Even though OBJ had an injured season, I think Odell Beckham is still a better player than him.
Definitely a better player.
So, Now, granted, OBJ got hurt, and I still somewhat am controversial putting hurt players on this list.
Like J.J. Watt?
Yeah. Because my thing is, we don't know what this list is. Is it the top 100 players that played in 2017?
Top 100 most popular players.
And then, to be honest, it is a popularity contest, is it not? Or top players entering the 2018 season. You know, like, which one is it? Because if you're saying, oh, these are players that played in 2017, what's J.J. Watt doing there? What's all these injured players doing there? They didn't play. You know, I can understand if it's a projection list. I get that.
Well, I still wouldn't understand that because OBJ would definitely be higher.
Yeah, he'd be a top 20 player if it's a projection list, and then Case Keenum wouldn't be at 51 if it's a projection list. So it's kind of like like I said, we don't vote. We don't know what the voting rules is. It's just they give them a paper and they just tell them, hey, give me your 10 best players, and then by percentage numbers, that's where they put them at.
Probably.
Now, and that's our reaction. Tell us what you guys think of the top 100 list. Who are some controversial guys? Leave a comment down below, and always like and subscribe, as always, for more content here on MVP. Now we go on to our NFC East rankings. Now, each and every week, me and Darius get together. We go over a new division, and we talk about, last week we talked about the NFC North. I controversially put the Vikings at number 1. You put Aaron Rodgers, I believe. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers at number 1 because, as you say, it's Aaron Rodgers.
It's Aaron Rodgers. You can't bet against him when
That's
he's
true.
healthy.
Now we go to the NFC East, which is the most talked about, the most popularized division because they are in big-name cities. You got New York, you got Philly, you got Dallas.
America's team.
And then you also have, Washington, D.C. You're literally hitting all the biggest cities there is. Number 1, let's get this one easily out the way. It's the Eagles.
Easily, without a doubt, Eagles.
Eagles, I have them at 12-4.
I got them at 11-5.
Which I think 11-5 is probably the low mark for them. I think at best they can do 14-2. The only thing is how well Nick Foles is going to perform with that offense. And how is
Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz won't be ready
okay.
until I think maybe week 3. They say week 4.
Okay.
So you still need to look at Nick Foles is going to be the starter unless Carson. And then also, how does Carson Wentz do from this injury? How does he recover from this major injury? And same with Jason Peters. He's also coming back from an injury as well. They added Dallas Goedert, a tight end from South Dakota State, I believe. A very, obviously a small school, but he's a great producer there. Another tight end added to the mix. All you're doing is keep adding weapons for Carson Wentz, and that's always going to be a good thing for your young quarterback. Biggest loss is Michael Kendricks. I still want to know why they cut him. He's a big leader for that team, and he's one of the key pivotal moments, but that defense is still pretty good out there. And their biggest add to me also is a guy named Sidney Jones, a guy they drafted last year that was out. He actually injured himself during his pro day, and that couldn't be any worse, especially for a rookie trying to get drafted, a guy trying to get drafted, to get hurt on your pro day because that means and it was an ACL injury, and that means you're out the whole season. And so it's kind of like his redshirt season, and now they get to bring him in. He's now fully healthy. He's going to be part of that great defense, and I think he's going to have a big look out for Sidney Jones to produce well for the Eagles.
Definitely.
Number 2 for me, I have the Giants. What's your number 2 team?
My number 2, I got America's team. I got the Cowboys coming in at 9-7, but I'm on the fence about that. It might be 8-8. I don't know.
To me, relatively these records are relatively the average of what I think their best can be and what I think their worst can be.
Yep.
And let's talk about the Cowboys for a second. That's my number 3 team. The record I have for them is 6-10. That's my low ball record, and I actually believe that's where I think they're going to end up being more closely. I think 8-8 is relatively where they may ultimately end up. Why do I think they're 8-8? Is because now they're trying to make this offense revolve around Dak Prescott and running the ball. Granted, you have a great offensive line to do that. The problem is you still don't surround Dak Prescott with any weapons. You took away Des Bryant. Now, granted, he wasn't having a good repertoire with him anyways, but at the same time, Des Bryant does a lot of things other than catch the ball, he is a target. You still target him because he's the number one receiver. The reason why Cole Beasley gets open looks, the reason why Terrence Williams gets open looks is because he's getting covered. Same with Jason Witten. Jason Witten also got covered. He's now not there.
Yeah, he's retired. As
well, too. And so how are you going to... You move into the... When Dak Prescott is now the focal point. Now, if Dak Prescott is the most important player on this team, if they're going to be successful, is how they manage Dak Prescott in this offense. Ezekiel Elliott is always going to get his. He's probably going to average over 1,500 yards behind that offensive line and be in top 5 in rushing touchdowns. But it ultimately comes down to you passing the ball. You can run the ball all you want, kill the clock. But if the other team is throwing touchdowns and it becomes a shootout, do you really believe Dak Prescott is going to be able to do that? Would you have your fate in Dak Prescott slinging it against Carson Wentz, against other teams in the NFC?
Definitely not. I wouldn't.
Because like if you look at his weapons, they added a guy like Allen Hurns. People tend to forget that they added him, and that's going to be their guy. They're going to be used as Des Bryant. That's their Des Bryant replacement, and not really so Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley and stuff like that. But still, it's going to be hard for me. My prediction, like I said, is at 6-10. Though I did think they added in a great rookie linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch. It's like you said, Sean Lee gets hurt too much. This is their immediate replacement, and he's going to be an immediate impact player for me as well in that defense.
No doubt.
Let's get to talking to the Giants. That's my number 2 team. That's your number 3 team there. I have them, even though number 2, 8-8. What's your record for them?
For my Giants coming in at number 3, I got them going 7-9, mainly because, no doubt they picked up a great running back, and I know they've picked up at least one offensive line.
Oh, Nate Solder.
That terrible offensive line. But they're still iffy with this whole quarterback situation. Eli Manning isn't getting any younger. Literally, he's old.
Exactly. He's around 34, 35 years old. He's on his last legs, and he's also not a good regular season quarterback. You're getting a lot of guys back from injury. And I think the Giants ultimately they put all their chips on the table for this year. Like I really believe they're like, listen, this is Eli's last year. We have to, if we ain't gonna win, that's it. We'll blow up the team next year. They traded for Alec Ogletree, a linebacker we didn't even get the touch there for the Rams, who's now on the Giants. They got Jonathan Stewart to be a complimentary back. They draft Saquon Barkley, an immediate impact player. You get Nate Solder. You completely get rid of all the bad offensive linemen on the team with Justin Pugh and their center they had there, Westberg, I think. You kind of get rid of big name contracts in Jason Pierre-Paul. You got rid of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. I'm still very iffy on this defensive back group for them. Landon Collins is still a premier safety in the league. I like him a lot. But regardless, I think they put all their chips on the table with Saquon Barkley, OBJ coming back healthy, all the Sterling Shepard coming back healthy as well too, and all these guys, and hoping that Eli Manning can throw for at least 4,000 yards, and OBJ has a great season yet again, and Saquon Barkley rushes for over 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Now, granted, if they do that, they are a team to watch out for. But Eli Manning is so inconsistent. There are times where Eli Manning looks like an amazing Hall of Fame quarterback. And there are times where he literally throws the ball with his left hand into the end zone and he throws like 5 interceptions a game. You don't know and that's literally Eli Manning's whole career. He's literally been, we should get rid of him, to he's the greatest New York quarterback of all time. The guy who beat Tom Brady to also the guy who couldn't beat the 0-16 Browns at times. And
it's true.
He's very hot and cold, and especially at his age, all quarterbacks, there's always that big drop off. It's always happened time in and time out. Brett Favre had it where he had an amazing game in the season with the Vikings. Next year, completely off the map and didn't even look like he belonged on the field. Peyton Manning threw for 5,000 yards.
Broke the touchdown record. 55 touchdowns.
Next year, couldn't even get over 2,500 yards. Looked like he had a noodle arm.
Literally was carried by the defense for a championship.
Got replaced by Brock Osweiler, who performed just as good, if not better than him that season. And you see it eventually that these quarterbacks' age eventually catches up to him. All those hits and all those punishments they take eventually catch up to him. So does it finally get to him? Does it finally, that inconsistency finally become a thing where he's literally inconsistent the whole season? And the Giants cannot afford to do that by drafting all these. Now, granted, Saquon Barkley is a great draft piece. You're going to have him for a while. Same with OBJ. And so I think that's the reason why they didn't trade OBJ, because that was a big headline. If you don't remember that OBJ wanted out because he wanted to get paid. And granted, he should get paid. And they were like, no, we'll keep him for this season, keep him under his rookie contract, and then next season, depending on how we do, that's when they're going to blow up the team. I really believe that this team's about to get blown up next year. Whether I think this is Eli Manning's last year. I think OBJ is going to probably, I do believe he's going to be on the team. Like, I want to see what direction they want to take with him. I think if they're successful, and which he is going to be. No matter what, he's going to ball out. The only reason why he gets traded if a team that trades for him gives him something they can't refuse. Like, oh, we'll give you 2 first-round picks and a future first-round pick. You know? Something along the lines the Rams were willing to do this year.
Yep.
But ultimately, I think the Giants are 8-8. Because I think the Eagles are going to win this division easily, to me. The worst team is the Redskins, for me. Tell me your record for them.
So, yeah, I got the Redskins last in that division, and I got them 5-11. But according to you, that might be a little generous.
That 5-11 is too nice. I think this team can be a 2-14 team or 4-12. They're not better than 4-12. They're, as much as I was talking and ranting about the Giants and the Cowboys, they're still better than the Redskins. The Redskins traded away key defensive players with Fuller, their cornerback. Granted, they still have
Ryan Kerrigan.
Ryan Kerrigan. They still have guys like Josh Norman on the defensive backfield. But this is the thing I don't understand about the Redskins. So you pretty much said we're not going to sign Kirk Cousins, a guy who threw for 4,000 yards, who was an easy transition for y'all from RG3 to him. You're lucky you drafted that one of those two panned out. And Kirk Cousins, as much a lot of people talk smack about him, he's overrated, this and that and the other. Every year he's thrown for 4,000 yards. Every single year.
That's pretty good.
He's had nobody as a receiver. Deshaun Jackson was his most talented receiver he's ever had, but that's back then when Deshaun Jackson was done with. He wasn't Deshaun Jackson with the Eagles now.
Definitely not.
Jordan Reed is a great tight end. He cannot stay healthy at all. You have guys on Vernon. He made Vernon Davis look competent when Vernon Davis was barely getting even playing time with the Broncos, and even now with the Redskins. They have no running game whatsoever. That's why they drafted Geis, which I do believe he's going to get a lot of heavy workload, but I think it's just you're going to ask too much for him as a running back. And you go ahead and you trade for Alex Smith. Now, as the Redskins, that makes sense before the extension. You're going to get a guy who's on his last legs. You're going to get a bridge quarterback, and you're telling your fan base, we're at least trying. You know, we're not going to stick with Colt McCoy or whatever backup you have there, the Redskins. You also, Kirk Cousins won you too many games for you to draft a quarterback in this year's past draft. And you guys didn't go out and trade for one because they already did do that. You already gave up your life to get RG3. And RG3 is no longer on the team. And so that was a failed experiment. So now the Redskins are too scared to do that yet again. But guess what? You starting the process all over again. Now you're literally one of the worst teams in the league. You got a quarterback that's on his last legs. And the only reason why he won't retire for that 5-year extension to a 34-year-old quarterback. That means he's going to play till he's 39. Mind you, this is Alex Smith, who has never led the league in touchdowns, who's never led the league in yards, who's never really even been the focal point to any offense he's been a part of. When he was with the 49ers, they ran the ball really well. That's what they made their successful with. Frank Gore and telling him to literally, we're letting you not lose the game. That's what we want you to do, is not to lose the game. What's he going to do with the Redskins? Well, they have guys now. They're going to make him that. They're going to probably make it running the ball, and then who they're going to throw it to? Jamison Crowder? That's somebody Kirk Cousins made into a somebody. And all these other players too. Doxson is a good piece that they drafted in the first round, still hasn't performed at all. Then on top of that, when Alex Smith was also with the Kansas City, they ran the ball with Jamal Charles and Kareem Hunt. That's where the success of their offense, and they just told him, hey, throw it to Tyreek Hill because he's just too fast for these guys.
Much.
Have Travis Kelce as your tight end. Well, a number 2, if not also, when Gronk's not healthy, he's the best tight end in the league. So you have these weapons around him, and then on top of that, you have a great defense behind Alex Smith. Where do you go to? You go to a team who don't got no weapons on offense. You got a team that is going against the Super Bowl champs, a team trying to win the Super Bowl in Eli Manning's last leg, and the Dallas Cowboys, who are too talented to lose too many games, to be honest. You got a Redskin team where you're the worst team in the division, and whatever your out-of-conference schedule is, you're more likely ain't going to beat nobody else unless you're facing the Browns. That's going to be one guaranteed win if they do play them this upcoming season. And then on top of that, you said you're not going to pay Kirk Cousins all that money, but you decided you want to sign Alex Smith to a 5-year extension till he plays till he's 39 years. This is why I have the Redskins going 2-14, if not 4-12. If you want to place a bet that the Redskins will have a top 5 draft pick in next NFL draft, because they will. They're back to where they originally started. You drafted RG3 to try to win you a Super Bowl. Didn't win nothing. You had Kirk Cousins. Didn't want to sign him on the team. Now you're back at square one and you're trying to draft a quarterback while paying a guy who used to be good or average to play till he's 39 years old and won't retire because he got to collect his paycheck unless they're going to cut him.
Yeah, they're in a bad situation right now. Safe to say that.
Like what player on that team you think is really good? Josh Norman. Josh Norman and Ryan Kerrigan are guys that headline that team. And Trent Williams. Those 3 guys, those are not enough players to make you win 5 games, to be honest. Alex Smith can pull out a victory here and there, but ultimately I don't believe it whatsoever. So our list says, my list goes as the Eagles. Both me and you have the Eagles number 1 team. The Redskins are the number 4 team. And I think me and you relatively agree with the Giants and Cowboys. They can flip-flop. They're a team that are both 8-8 or relatively that around that area, where it's like they're too talented to suck, but they're not that talented enough to beat the Super Bowl reigning champs, who are gonna get better. This is Carson Wentz.
They're gonna get their MVP back.
Yeah, and then also better weapons on offense, and under another year with Carson, because Carson Wentz is young. So moving on. That's about done it for our NFC East prediction. Please leave a comment below on what you think about me and Darius's prediction, and leave a comment on who do you think is going to be the standout player within this division. To me, I think Carson Wentz is the best player in the division. Well, I think he's going to get the most recognition in this division.
Definitely, for sure.
Right. So that's it for today's podcast, guys. Please always subscribe and hit that notification button so you know when we upload new content. And until next time, we'll see you then.